Hey, what's up? So, just last week, we hosted a 3-day LA intensive here in beautiful Los Angeles, and I taught for 3 whole days with 7 of my clients, and it was so much fun. It was powerful. There were breakthroughs. And this episode of the podcast, I'm sharing with you one of the sessions that we did together, the very first session that I taught on day one, on step by step my roadmap for how I raise $2.5 million, dollars, what I do with my time, how I think about my portfolio, how I create my strategy to raise 2.5, what I stop doing, how I take big swings, and everything in between. I know this is going to be so helpful to you, so buckle up. You're going to love it.
So, how I start my day is I'm sort of like setting my intention and clarifying how I want to feel today. I know that sounds a little woo woo, but I ask myself the question before I start anything, before I read my emails, before I check Slack, before I do none of that. Okay. If you don't like how do I want to feel, how do I want to show up? And I usually pick 3 adjectives. So I'll say, okay, today I want to have fun. Today I'm going to be fun. Today I'm fun, Julie. Today I'm going to be a great listener. I'm going to be a great listener today. Today I'm going to be optimistic. Today I'm going to be encouraging. My theme for today is encouragement. So as I'm connecting with people, right, as I'm creating content, as I'm doing this inner work, I am constantly thinking like, who can I encourage? Right? And you get to pick your adventure. Every day it could be a different flavor. Okay? But you sort of start out the day. This is how I do it. I'm like, all right, what's my intention for today? Confident, communicative, fun. And maybe I'll put a post-it note on my computer or however you like to remind yourself. I've set alarms before and had the title be those 3 words and just like set 3 different alarms throughout the day. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, take a break. Or every time I eat food, right, I'm like, okay, I go back to those 3 words. And it for me has made a huge difference. And then I end up talking with people and they say, oh my gosh, I feel so encouraged. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, oh, that's good. I'm so glad. But inside I'm like, you fell into my trap, my pretty. I'm like, intentional. How do I want to show up? This work is hard. You're going to hear no a lot. It's stressful, right? And in many ways, and when I'm in this role, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I don't raise this money, my colleagues and friends' livelihood is dependent upon my success. There is pressure with this job that is very real, right? And there is a lot of things we cannot control. And a lot of it is noise. It's noise. And it's meant to discourage us and get us down and slow us down, make us exhausted. And so I find setting my intention for the day, this is how I want to show up. Stress is going to come, things are going to go wrong, it's not going to go to plan, but this is who I want to be. And this is how I'm going to do it. That's been amazing for me. I start with gratitude. When I first wake up, I start with gratitude. I'm like, thank you, God. I'm alive. I'm breathing. Thank you, God, for this bed. I love this bed. I don't even want to get out of it. Thank you, God, for, I'm like, I go down the line. I sit at my desk and I look at my list of donors. I pull up Salesforce and I start to thank God for these people. I'm telling you what I do. I'm not saying you should do this. I'm saying this is what has made it easier to raise $2.5 million. And I've done it multiple times. And I thank God for my donor. I pray for them. I'm like, Bob, there he is, Bob. Good old Bob. Thank you, God, for Bob. I pray for his family. I pray for a blessing over his life. So you better believe when I'm connecting with Bob, I have that energy. I'm for you, Bob. I'm for you. When he says, Julie, oh my God, business is not good. And I am going to have to lay off my staff. And I don't know how much I'm going to be able to give this year. Like, I bring the energy of being for him. You see? And then he can tell me anything. I'm okay. I'm not this stressed, desperate person. I'm like, man, that sounds really tough. I'm so sorry. That is remembered because for Bob, that is a very low point in his life. He does not want to deliver that news to me. He does not want to tell me, I don't even know how much I'm going to be able to give. Last year, he gave $150,000, so you better believe I want Bob to give again. I want his business to be successful. Of course I do. But it's not always going to be the best year for Bob, right? And if I'm intentional about how I show up for him, he's going to remember that. People remember when we're kind with them in their lowest points. And we get to do that for our donors. I've done it so many times. I've had so many donors say to me, you're the only person who the relationship didn't get awkward when my business was down and I couldn't give more. Talk about being a differentiator. How is our organization different? Right? That don't have nothing to do with the mission. Are we the best at what we do? Blah, 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 blah. Because sometimes you might not be the best at what you're doing. You're in a year where you're growing and somebody might be more effective than you in your niche, in your industry. But if you actually give a shit about people beyond what they can do for you when they can't do something for you, then you have someone who is loyal for life. And then Bob says to me, you know, this isn't, like, your nonprofit isn't even my wife's favorite. It's not, but I don't care. I told her, I said, we're not going to stop giving to these people. Oh yeah. I've heard all kinds of stuff from people. And I'm like, why do I think that is? And I asked Bob, I'm like, why is that, Bob? And he'll even explain to me like, oh, you know, the model that you have, and I really believe in the leadership and what y'all are doing and the culture that you've built with your team and like those intangible things, right, that come from having relationships with people. And then I look at Bob's behavior, and he's someone who basically is like a pen pal for me. Like, that's his donor engagement, is he's retired, he's got a lot of money, he's, you know, an advisor and sits on multiple boards. He gives a lot of money away. Do you have any donors like this? Do you? And he's like, he writes me long emails about stuff. And I respond with long emails about stuff. Like, that's part of what I'm doing for 15, 20 minutes on a Tuesday is I'm writing Bob about a podcast that I listened to that I thought he would like. I'm telling him about what's going on with our organization. I'm giving him like a quick update, like, oh, this is something I'm looking forward to. This is something I'm excited about. Here's what I'm learning. And then I ask a question that's open-ended that I know he's gonna answer and write back a long email. Because that's what he likes to do. Not everybody's going to like that. That's Bob's thing, right? So intentionally showing up with donors goes such a long way. Talk about the lifetime value of a Bob. It's huge. And then I'm like, hey, we're actually, you know, this year, one of our updates is we're looking to grow our donor community in the Bay Area. I just made that up. I made that up. If you go on the website, it don't say that. We're not doing that, but we are. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm doing it. So I'm like, hey, I'm actually looking to connect with more people like you, Bob. Do you know anybody who should know about us? Do you know anyone who we should be, you know, in touch with, in relationship with, who might want to be involved to some capacity? Do you see how open-ended that is? Like, I don't know what I don't know about Bob's network. I know he has one. This particular donor that I'm thinking of, his name's not Bob, but he was a lecturer at Stanford, and one of his talks is on YouTube, and so I spent the time and I listened to his talk. The guy gives $150,000 a year. Is it worth me listening to his YouTube talk? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We say we don't have time. Got to make time, because the talk was about, he was talking to business grad students, MBA students at Stanford, and he was telling them about how to network and how to ask people for favors professionally. And I was like, what? So I went, because I'm just Googling the guy, right? I'm planning, I'm researching Bob. Google him, what comes up in the first 2 pages? Scan through that. Hello, there's this talk that's on the second Google search page. I'm like, oh, great. And he's like, anybody will, one of the main things he said in his talk was like, anybody will introduce you to anyone in their network if you just have a specific reason why you want to meet them. And he's like, rather than just go to someone and be like, hey, do you know anybody who is in whatever industry? He's like, that's so vague. He's like, I don't even know how I would be able to go through my entire network in my head. Like, he's like, I'm 67. Do you know how many people I know? And I'm like, that's a fair point, Bob. I'm like, listening to this. I'm like, yeah, this slaps. Okay. And then he's like, but if you went on my LinkedIn and you saw a connection that I had and you came to me and you said, hey, could you introduce me to this particular person? And here's the reason why. He's like, I would totally do it. So I did that. You see? You see? And what did he say? He was like, yeah, sure. What a great idea. Oh. And then he starts thinking, then he went, because he loved that I did it, right? And I didn't say, hey, I watched your YouTube video. I just did the thing. Then he starts introducing me to, oh, and you should know this person, and you should know this organization. They should be funding you. And actually, I sit on the board over here, blah, blah, blah. Because I asked for one referral, right? And I did research on this guy. I knew who my audience was. I knew him. And, it didn't take much time. It really didn't. I fast forwarded through the YouTube video. They have chapters. It was great. I got the juice out of the lemon, right? And that one referral, now that I've asked for that, it's like I've opened the door to a new wing in the house. Because now I've changed the dynamic between us where it's not just about his personal giving. Now I'm engaging him in who he knows. And once I opened that door and it was a yes, there was a whole world behind that door that I hadn't accessed yet. And so that was a huge source of new donors for me, because I did a great job of taking care of Bob. So what kind of energy do you want to embody when you're connecting with people? You're sharing your convictions, you're sharing your story, you're sharing your why, you're doing research on them, you understand more of who your audience is, and you're creating content that speaks to your ideal person, right? So when I think about who's our dream scenario profile of a donor, right? For the Teaching Well, it might be someone who either is a retired teacher, you might say, right? Retired teacher is somebody who lives in a certain area. You could say Bay Area, LA, right? You're thinking about what are the demographics, obviously. Then you're thinking about the psychographics. You're thinking about what's their psychology. Are they someone who is philanthropic? Do they already give money away? You could talk to people and target people who already give money away. It's a great idea. Nah. Otherwise, you're talking to people who don't give money away, and that is so tough. The psychographic or the ideal donor profile, and you might have 2 or 3. And you're writing and outreach is thinking about that one person. So for me, Bob fit this psychographic. He was retired, but you don't have to be retired, so I wouldn't even add that on there. So it would be tech industry, some kind of experience in tech, wealthy. Let's say over 45. Then you could get into the psychographics of, and this is related to this, loves use of tech to make world better. Okay, this is my donor profile. We could go further and say definitely has kids, lives in the Bay Area. Now this doesn't fit everybody, but it fits a really good chunk. I would say at least a third of the donor profile. There are other donor profiles. There was like a younger group, right, that was making good money, but still like a salaried employee, living in a major market, typically not middle of America, typically on the coasts, right? So when I'm writing a blog, I'm thinking about who is the one person who fits this profile, right? And for me, I'm thinking about Bob, because I know Bob, and I'm thinking about what's going to resonate with him. So one single person. It's as if I'm writing to him. I'm creating content for him. I'm talking to him. One single person. You with me? Mm-hmm. Great. All right, so here's how I think about my calendar. Okay, so I'm doing time blocks, and I'm always thinking about my North Star. And my North Star is 2.5 million. So I'm doing time blocks. So Monday, it's for planning, scheduling meetings. The first thing I do is I'm looking at my portfolio, like I mentioned earlier. I'm looking at my whole list, right? I'm expressing gratitude, planning out and looking at what are my opportunities that are coming up in this quarter, next quarter. Who do I need to meet with? Who am I meeting with this week? Who do I need to schedule meetings with for the rest of this month? And the fewer donors you have who are giving bigger amounts, the fewer meetings you need to get. So the KPIs change depending on the time of year and depending on who I'm looking at. If I've got 50, 80 donors and I need to get at least one meeting with them in 12 months, then I'm looking at, okay, who right now in this quarter do I need to ask? And then those are the people that I'm prioritizing for that Monday. I'm sending out, it could be on Monday, I'm sending out like 15 to 20 meeting requests on Monday. I do it Monday because then I have a greater chance of them replying for the rest of the week. If I ask on Thursday, Friday, ooh, it's gonna get lost. Ouchie. So I try to front load that. Tuesday through Thursday is connecting with people. And when I'm not doing that, I'm writing. And my golden rule for my North Star, because again, this is what's guiding me. This is the priority. This is it. This is why they hired me. This is the social contract that I agreed to when I said, yes, I will take this job, is this. At the end of the day, I will answer for this. Everybody else might lose sight of that, but I'm not going to. I refuse. Because at the end of the day, we cannot meet our mission if we don't have the money. We cannot fulfill it if there ain't no gas in the tank. That's the way the cookie crumbles. And if I'm going to get this, I got to do a lot of this, connecting with people. So, as a result, I say no a lot, and I say no to internal meetings. I don't go to them. You all know I'm a rebel. You know it. Everybody knows it. And whoever my boss is, I will say to them, I will say, look, this is how this is going to go. After my first 90 days, you're going to want me to come to all these internal meetings. You're going to want me to go and sit there and listen. And I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to your meetings. Because they're usually a waste of time. And if I am out connecting with people, whatever it is we're talking about in the meeting is solved. If I was out there raising this money, then you would not need me to go to no internal meetings. We really need to understand this. Like, just refuse it. Be like, look, and I have said this, okay, and this takes courage. I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. You want me to come to a meeting for an hour we're going to talk about how to raise money instead of going and raising $10,000 in an hour. And I'm your second highest paid employee in this place. Do you know what my hourly rate is? So the opportunity cost, I'm not meeting and connecting with people that's either going to pay money now or it's going to pay off later. And instead, you want me to sit my tush in your meeting so we can talk about the job that I'm not doing because I'm sitting here. I'm like, just so we're clear, you want me to do that. Okay, got it. But usually I win. I usually win because they're like, oh yeah, you're right. You need to go raise money. I'm like, yeah. So usually I would say if I'm meeting with folks internally, it's a mentorship meeting. I'm helping them, right? Or if it's internal meeting, it's like the one meeting a week or every other week that I'll go to. That's like an all staff, blah, blah, whatever. But even then, I'll probably not go. Because my priority is connecting with people, and if that in any way has to be put on the back burner for internal meetings, this comes first every time. Because that's the best way that I can show up for my team, is if I'm connecting with people. So I just make more time for myself by not going to internal meetings. And all of a sudden I have 5 hours a week that's freed up, and it's just like, wow, this is amazing. Now I can actually have time to think. I can have time to plan. Friday is admin day. So that's when I'm updating Salesforce. I'm sending handwritten thank you notes, donor gifts, sending people books that I read that I thought they might like. Because I like to do that. And what it costs, $15, whatever. I don't do that for all, 100 donors, but the people who I'm like, oh, I think they're going to love this. And then reviewing, what happened for the week, if I need to close any loops, if there's action steps, I need to connect with people on the team, like, hey, can you come with me to this meeting? Hey, can we do this thing? Can you reach out to this donor? So that's sort of also an internal day, I would say. And again, if I am going to an internal meeting, it's usually on Thursday or Friday, because I want to front load the thing that's most important in the week. And I do it at the top of the day. So I connect with people after I set my intention. I'm connecting with people before lunch. Connecting with people before lunch. Okay, that's how I structure my time. All right, great. Now we're gonna go into my strategy. If I'm looking at my donors, how I start is I'm looking at what are the largest asks. So if my fiscal year starts in July, I'm typically doing this in May. If my fiscal year starts in January, I'm doing this in January. Because December is so consequential. It's just, you could make a plan for your fiscal year in January start in you would love to be able to do it in advance, but October, November, December, as we all know, is just so consequential that I've raised $250,000 on December 31st. So it's just hard to be able to plan if your fiscal year, January. So I just do it in January. Ain't nobody want to really meet with you in January anyway, not many people, so it's a great time. January, February. And I'm looking at all the folks who gave the previous fiscal year, and I start from biggest to small, and I'm looking at, okay, the first question I ask myself is, are any of these current donors, if I start with the current donors, there's a reason, are any of my current donors positioned for a 7-figure ask? That's the first question I'm asking myself. Who is positioned for a 7-figure ask? So the way that I think about it is, who has the capacity? Who do we have the trust and the relationship with? And it's the right timing. So it's reading the relationship. And this is where having a high emotional IQ really comes into play. And a lot of nonprofit folks underestimate where they stand with people. Like, you might think that the donor is just like, oh, teaching well's cool. Yeah, cool. And they're really like, teaching well. You know, they're like ready to get a tat, you know? You see what I'm saying? And so, you know, there's some diehards. And so part of emotional intelligence is understanding what's happening within yourself. This is the definition, right? Understanding the emotions that are happening within you and being able to regulate them. Self-control, we might call it. Emotional regulation. So when you're stressed, does it leak out of you? Like, does everybody know? Right? Or are you able to play it cool and manage yourself well? And then the other component of emotional IQ is, do you actually know what's happening within the person you're across from? And do you have an accurate read on that? Ooh, that's hard. It takes skill. And obviously, you know, you can get it wrong, but you learn. And being able to have an accurate read on where you stand, where you as a contributor to the team stands with this person. Yes, like, how do they feel about you? Do you know? But then how do they actually feel about your organization as like a unit? How do they feel about your brand, your team, your mission, your model, the way that you do things? Do you read that accurately? That's part of how I assess timing, is like, where are they in the spectrum of like, are they all in, or do they still have some questions, or they just don't have enough experience, or what is it? And for every human being, it's different, right? Some of us need more time and experiences personally to really trust someone to give away a 7-figure gift. Some people do not need that. Okay, I'm telling you, I know this. Okay, you would be surprised. Some people are willing to give away a lot of money that maybe you personally cannot imagine giving away. And they don't need to meet you. They don't need to have lunch with you. They don't need to, Will knows this. They don't need for you to fly to them. Maybe some people do, some people don't. They're like, please don't meet with me. Please don't. Here's $1 million. You're never gonna see me. This is real and it exists. And the big lie is that we need to work harder and do more to convince people who are already convinced. They're already convinced. They're already all in. We ask for too little. Too little. We ask for too little. We ask for too little. And we're like, oh, I couldn't possibly ask for them to double their gift because I need to meet with them 17 more times. You know, the donors that I've asked for and received 7-figure gifts, 6-figure gifts, that's a lot of money still, right? Are great partners, and they want you to succeed, and they trust you to do what you do. So I'm asking myself that big question: who can give 7-figure gift? Then I think about, okay, if I know that what the organization goal is, so let's say the organization goal is 10, just to keep it a nice number. Then I'm like, okay, so If they need to raise 10 this year, next year is probably a growth year. Shocker. Then let's say if I know the following year is going to be 11 or 12 or whatever it is, 10.5 even, then I'll think about multi-year asks. So so first I'm looking at 7-figure, then I'm looking at multi-year. The 7-figure could be the multi-year. As it's tied to our vision, our strategic plan, if there's a multi-year strategic plan, then I always leverage that, because that positions why I'm asking for the amount that I'm asking. Why them and why this number. It's rooted in the growth of the organization. So it makes it really hard to ask for these gifts if you don't know what the future goals are. It makes it hard. The exception to that would be if you have loyal donors who've been giving for 3+ years, and it's more, you're positioning the ask now as a result of their loyalty and not necessarily because you have this written out strategic plan. You could still do that. So I think about it like that. I'm like, hey, you're loyal. I know that you're all in. You love what we do. Like, you believe, right, that young people should have access to the hope and help that we offer. I love how you said that. So for that reason, I'm asking you to consider giving $300,000 over the course of the next 3 years, starting this year. That's kind of how I would position it, right? Like, it's based on them and they're tied to the mission, and it's less about like, oh, our exact organizational goals are blah, blah, blah. You don't have to have that to raise multi-year gifts, but it definitely helps. So then I'm planning that out. I'm like, okay, I think there are 5 donors who I'm at least 50% certain they're positioned for a 7-figure gift. I'm not even sure, like I'm not. And part of my engagement plan for that particular donor is to gauge if they are, to confirm that. That would be my next step for that particular donor, right? These 5 donors that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna ask these folks for 7-figure. So then I map that out, right? I'm like, okay, let's say it's $1 million each. That's $5 million that I'm gonna ask. That's great. If I think it's 50% probability, then that's already $2.5 million that I think I'll raise from that group. And I want that because I like raising more money from fewer people. How about you? At least when it comes to major gifts, right? Having a recurring giving program is amazingly powerful and great, and you should have that. And those folks can be your pipeline for your major gifts, for sure. So then I'm looking at my multi-year, I'm planning that out. I'm like, okay, these, let's say 20 people, I'm gonna ask for a multi-year gift, even if it's like 10K a year for the next 3 years, so 30K. Doesn't have to be 6-figure, could be. And I'm looking for points of leverage. So this is something we're gonna talk about tomorrow, which is what I'm now calling invisible millions, where you're talking to everyone about giving from their wealth and not cash giving, and using that as leverage to 10x the gift size per donor. But we'll really like deep dive into that so you totally understand what that is and how to talk about those things, and we can really suss that out tomorrow. Okay. Then I'm looking at, I'm creating a projected ask amount for each donor. So quarterly. I'm planning out, okay, this person I know they like to give once in May and they give again in December. So I'm gonna ask them at the top of the year. So I'm planning Q1, this, I'm gonna ask Bob to give $150,000. So I'm going line by line with my 83 donors or however many it is. And I'm planning when I'm going to ask them, what quarter am I gonna do that in? And if they're a DAF donor, if they're giving non-liquid assets, then it may be that I can ask them to give earlier in the year because I want cash up front, right? If I could get all the cash in January, I'm going to do it. And it usually is just a matter of communicating that to donors. Like, hey, it'd be really helpful. I know you typically give in August. Don't know why you do that. Is there a reason why you do that? And they'll be like, oh, no, doesn't matter to me. That's just when I have the free time, and I send my financial advisor my thing when I'm in my chateau in the south of France. Or whatever they say, it's fine, it's casual, I'm cool. Bless them, blessings. And I'm like, well, Bob, it would be amazing. That's so cool that you do that. It would be so great if you could give it now. And he's like, oh, sure. Psh, there's $100,000, because I just was inquisitive. I'm like, what, is there a reason why you do it in August? It'd be great if you could give up front. Or the people that I'm like, oh, who could I front load in Q1, whatever my Q1 is, so that I feel like I have this wind, this momentum that I'm designing, I'm building it for myself so that I have all this on lock. And I know this is going to come in, or it's already come in. When you're asking for smaller amounts, you're going to hear yes more often. When you're taking big swings, which I'll talk about in a minute, you might have a lower win rate, and that's not a bad thing. It just means you're taking bigger risks, and that's awesome. And you might be in a position where you need to take bigger risks. I love to do that. No. I love it. So I'm not like, oh no, they all said no. I'm like, who else can I yeah, I'm thinking about, okay, so all of this together, my ask amount is, 18 million. It's far and above 2.5 usually, hopefully, as much as I can. Because some of this, think about it, is a multi-year gift. So some of that is going to be revenue, 20% of my revenue from the coming fiscal year. Not even the fiscal year that I'm planning for, but the subsequent. So I'm like, okay, I need that because not all of this is going to land. I'm not going to get a yes across the board. So if I want to make sure that I always try to exceed my goal, I always try to stretch it, then hopefully I can get 2.5, 2.7, 2.8, 3 from this 18 mil that I've asked for here. That's how I think about that. And then so this is just current donors. If let's say that I don't have this, I'm like, I got my current donors, I think most of them, let's say it's going to be flat, and then some increase, but not a lot. I will go and look at one-time givers in the last 3 years. I'll look at people who've come to an event, whether it was online or whether it was in person. I will do some research on those people. I will spend half a day on a Monday researching who these people are. I'll look them up on LinkedIn. I'll Google them. I'll try to see, hopefully in Salesforce, I can see how they are connected to our organization, who introduced them, were they a +1 of somebody who is here? Then of course, right, I'm gonna reach out to Bob. Hey Bob, who's Carol? Carol came to our so-and-so event. Can you come with me on a meeting with Carol? Do you think she would take a meeting? Once again, like I said earlier, do you think that Carol would be interested in getting involved at some capacity? Let's say this isn't projected to be 18 million. Let's say this is projected to be, what would be a worrisome amount? Only 500K that I'm going to ask for. Ooh, how am I going to get here? Then I'm like, all right, this is a big new donor play. Because if the most that I think I can do, first thing I would do is go back and look and be like, okay, where was I playing it safe? Where was I being a little bit scaredy cat? And if I was asking people for what I thought might be their best gift, and maybe I'm like, actually they need more time. I want to ask them for $100,000 next year. Is there any chance I could push that up now? Why wouldn't I? Are there actual valid reasons for why I wouldn't do it now? Am I saving it for later? That ain't the time. Because right now, I'm only projecting to ask for 500K. Maybe 250 of that's going to come in. So that's not going to get me to my North Star. It's not going to get me. So if you do your projection and you're like, this isn't more than 2.5, then it's going to be about how can I create leverage for myself to get to 2.5? And that's through the invisible millions, non-liquid assets. I'm looking at people's giving types from the previous fiscal year, and I'm saying, okay, do all of these people give cash? Who is a DAF donor? Who is giving, are any of these people retired? Are they giving from their retirement accounts? Why or why not? If you're over the age of 71 and a half, don't ask me why it's a half. I don't know why. It makes no sense. You can give, I think it's up to 100K out of your retirement account, your IRA, without penalty. So if I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about what are the non-traditional ways I haven't considered? Are any of my people entrepreneurs? Would they consider a profit sharing model? Again, we're going to talk about this more tomorrow and how to do that and all that. So I'm like, oh, then that squeezes out another $500,000. Then I'm thinking about referrals. I'm thinking about who are the biggest champions within this group and doing research on how can they make introduction.